Well, in the world of politics, competitors rarely team up together, but that's exactly what's happening this week with Pauline Hanson and Bob Katter joining forces ahead of next year's Queensland state election. They're out tonight in Western Queensland ahead of a week-long visit to drought-affected areas in an effort to hear directly from farmers and small-town communities about what's needed to help them survive and get back on their feet when the rains, let's hope, do come. Because this, for them, has been one of the worst droughts in living memory. Now, pleasingly, there's been some solid rains across parts of New South Wales this weekend. Of course, there's nothing better than rain, but how much of this has actually fallen in Queensland? That's what I'll be asking these two in just a moment. Joining me now live from Charleville is the Leader of One Nation, Senator Pauline Hanson, and her Queensland counterpart, the member for Kennedy, the very colourful leader of Katter's Australian Party, Bob Katter. Pauline Hanson, I've got to ask you, this is not Thelma and Louise. I mean, it's not often you see political competitors get together and hit the road. What set this all off?
Look, Bob and I think along the lines of we love our country, we love Queensland. I'm the Senator for Queensland. Bob has the largest electorate in the lower house, if not the second largest. It's about putting our heads together, working for the people of Queensland and putting out a message to Canberra that it's not good enough what they're doing, or we just want to see changes, and we want to give the people out here sense that people do care. We do have politicians that do care, and to give them hope and to listen to them.
Bob, this is your patch, Charleville, Cunnamulla, you're into Roma as well this week. Has there been any joy with the rains we've seen in New South Wales up your way?
No, there's just been some odd drizzles, not much more than drizzles. No, there's been no breaking of the drought or anything that remotely looks like a breaking of the drought.
I've got to say,
all right, I'm going to get into some...
about 34 mils. Yeah, they've had about 34 mil in the last few days, but it's not drought-breaking rain, but they're grateful for what little rain they have had.
I want to get into some specifics now, because I know both of you have got lots of ideas of the things you say have got to happen, but I want to also listen to what some locals had to say on the issue of are they getting enough support, is the government doing enough, and particularly, Pauline, I'll ask you about donations. We know millions have been raised around the country. I'm interested to know how much of that's hit the ground. Let's have a listen to what locals today in Charleville had to say.
Absolutely pathetic it is. It's terrible. They don't realise they should be out here, living out here, and realise what is really going on, because if the country people haven't got money, the townspeople haven't got money. It goes across the board.
They're always saying we're going to do this and do that, and there's talk about, they're working on some sort of package for the farmers, but the businesses in town need it, but the people in these towns need it too.
I reckon that we haven't got enough funding and things for the drought out here, for food and water. Where's the money going to? Are the farmers getting it? Are they, carrying on and going and giving it to them?
We don't see the pollies out here at all, except come election times.
I don't think they know we exist. I think it stops at Toowoomba. I think anything west of an hour and a half out of the major cities don't exist.
We do need help out here, for God's sakes. I'd just love them to come out here and see what goes on here.
All right, Pauline Hanson, I'm going to get to the issues of the federal government's response, but a lot of the responsibility for drought issues is the state government. So we've focused a lot on Scott Morrison and the National Party. And there hasn't been enough attention, I don't think, on what the states are doing and not doing. What do you reckon the response of Anastasia Palaszczuk has been on this drought for Queensland?
I think she's been pathetic, and her silence is deafening. When Morrison passes the buck to the states and says the states should be doing more about it, I'm sorry, here's the leader of this nation, here's the Prime Minister. He should be actually ensuring that the farmers are not sending their cattle to stock, to the abattoirs, or shooting them. You can't feed them, they can't afford it. So I'm sorry, he hasn't stepped up to the mark. They need food and they need water. If we put in the infrastructure now and build the Bradfield scheme to supply water to inland Queensland, flow it down to Murray-Darling, I've been saying that for a long time. Peter, it's not only farmers, it flows on to the small businesses. A lot of shops here are struggling in the township, and it's just not here. So if we look after the farming sector, that will flow into businesses, services. Look, I could go on. Native Vegetation Management Act by the state government, a lot of areas here. It's about putting the services back into the communities.
Bob, you and I have spent many hours in Canberra talking about issues of infrastructure, particularly dams. Some of the footage I'm showing on the screen of towns like Charleville were very big boom towns in their day. We talk about people living in regional Australia, but if we haven't got the water, if we haven't got viable businesses, we haven't got jobs, how on earth do we keep our country towns alive in a drought?
Peter, I hope I'm not embarrassing you, but I quote you 1,000 times, and I saw you say that 540 million was given to Barnaby Joyce 6 years ago, and there has not been a shovel load of concrete across a gutter. There has not even been an engineering plan drawn up, and the whole 540 million is gone. Now, it's a lot more than that that's gone. They've burnt up 1,000 million having a look at dams. And as for the National Party, I've got to be very brutal with the LNP and say they announce, I would say there's something like 23 dams that they've announced, but there hasn't been one shovel load of concrete across a gutter, and $1,000 million has been burnt up. Now, Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister, has said do it, and please God, we are doing it in Hewenden. But also, we've got the money for the planning, the engineering plan for Hell's Gate, which is Bradfield Stage 1. So we've got at least the engineering plan being drawn up.
Pauline Hanson, you know, we can put man on the moon 50 years ago, but we still are umming and ahhing about whether we've got the wherewithal, engineering-wise, and certainly money to do something like the Bradfield. The estimates I've seen are $15 billion. Now, when you look at what the Snowy 2.0 is going to cost, we won't get out of that for $10 billion. Why on earth wouldn't we do something like the Bradfield?
Why on earth? Should be, because it's bringing water that's flowing out into the ocean, which is also affecting the Great Barrier Reef. If we diverted that water back inland, it would water inland Australia. We would actually have more farming sector. Do you know, in the area here around Charleville, 23 farms have been sold. 28 are now under carbon credits, so they're not farming anymore, Peter. This was a huge sheep area. It was destroyed because of the wild dogs, which wasn't dealt with. Now we have the goats in the industries here, which is doing really well, but the state government now have done away with the kangaroo meat. So they've destroyed another 60 jobs in the town. So everything that happens is through government mismanagement, their policies, and it's destroying the communities. So if Morrison wants to send the refugees or migrants out to these towns, they won't come here because they're dying. And until you get water here, which is the basis of all our problems, start putting water here, you'll get people the incentive to stay on the land, grow the product, grow the food for export and to feed ourselves.
Right, Pauline, I get conflicting reports that there is a cohort of people, it's about 500 to 600, who will come off the farm household assistance by Christmas time because they are at the end of the mandated 4-year period. Now, there was mixed reports, as I said last week, that they won't come off. Some say no, that they will come off. What have you heard?
Look, I'm getting mixed reports as well. I actually spoke to, I went and saw a farmer up in Toowoomba last Friday, and he's coming off it. He's a dairy farmer, his father and his mother. So I'm actually chasing them up to ensure that they don't, because it'll be the end of them. They'll go under. There should not be a time limit to this. If it's a drought-affected area, they should be on their support system. No cut-off period of 4 years, and I'll be taking this back to Canberra, and I'll fight for these people to be on it. If they're in a drought-affected area, they should get the farmhouse support.
Bob Catter, how much of the donations, just quickly, Bob, I'll come back to you on that point, but just on the issue of donations, there are literally tens of millions of dollars raised around the country. A lot of city people very sympathetic to the issues of the bush on the drought. How much of that money are you sensing, at least in your electorate, has hit the ground, has been received by our farmers and others?
Oh, look, the farmers are deeply appreciative. They're very moved by the fact that people throughout Australia are standing behind them. That is important to them. Call it psychologically or whatever you want to call it. But it means something that we're pulling together as a nation. Pauline and I have different attitudes on a lot of things. We're pulling together to try and achieve something here. So how much does you raise $10 million? It doesn't go very far. I mean, these people, on average, are 1.1 million. They're up for $50,000 or $60,000 repayments to the banks. A reconstruction loan, the government's borrowing 1.5%. Why can't they lend out to these people at 1.5%? That is what every government has done in Australian history for the last 100 years. But we're not getting it to happen over the last 15 or 20 years. These free market policies say you're not allowed to do that anymore. Why? Why?
Pauline Hanson, how are you going to get change out of Canberra? I know you're on the crossbench. And look, you know, people watching this tonight, particularly up your way, will say, gee, we have a lot of fly-in, fly-out politicians come and talk the talk, but what actually changes? I listened to you with Alan a couple of weeks ago on the Dairy Code of Conduct. Very quickly, within a matter of days, you got a Dairy Code of Conduct out from the government. I'm not sure if it's as good as it could be, but certainly you got action from the government. How are you going to get change here?
Take back the positives, what I want the government, and it's people power. I'm only one voice, Peter, but I'm saying here it's about people power. The people have to rise up against the government and contact their officers and say it's not good enough what they're doing. The big thing that will help the farmers out there is to pay the transport costs of getting the feed from, if they've got to get from Victoria up to Queensland. If the government helped them with that cartage, that would be a big start. You actually give them monies to actually put in dams on their properties, clean out the wells or the bores. That would help tremendously. Townships like this, small businesses, you need them to stay here. I would actually look at tax relief for the small businesses here, so that you put them in a different tax bracket for when the time of drought is in these townships. So these are things that the government can do, and I think they should do. So I'll take this message back to Canberra, and hopefully I'll talk to the ministers, and if I can, I'll talk to the Prime Minister.
Peter, if I could just make a comment. The federal government is saying that feeding the cattle is the province of the state government. Well, I mean, to say that you're going to let the feeding of the cattle and the keeping alive of the cattle and put that in the hands of Palaszczuk and Trad would be akin to asking the Germans to provide the life rafts at the Battle of Jutland. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. These people.
Yeah, well, I think the point though there is
to closing down the farms.
But the point is, you can't let the state governments get off from responsibilities that they should have. It can't all be the federal taxpayer, but, well, it's the one taxpayer, let's be honest, with the federal government. Just tomorrow, Pauline Hanson, Melbourne Cup. Where will they find you tomorrow? Are you going to stay up that way?
Definitely, Charleville races. I'll be up here for the Melbourne Cup tomorrow. I came here 2 years ago, so it's not my first time in Charleville and won't be my last. So, you know, all the best to everyone tomorrow at the races. Hope you have a winner.
All right. Well, Pauline Hanson will be there. Will you be there too, Bob?
Well, Pauline will raise the level of sophistication and glamour, and I will bring it down to a level much lower.
All right. Well, we'll look for sophisticated, glamorous Pauline at the track and the bloke in the big hat, hey? The bloke in the big hat. Well, good luck with your tour. As I said to you, Charleville, Cunnamulla and Roma. I hope they're all prepared for the both of you in tandem there. Enjoy the rest of your week. And I really congratulate you putting a lot of pressure on politicians around the country to look closely at what's happening in these rural and regional towns. Pauline Hanson, Bob Catter, thanks very much for your time tonight.